Yes, sir. My name is Mark Hall.
And where do you live, sir?
I live in Ashboro.
And what do you do for work in Nashville?
I am the Associate Pastor of Student Ministry and Adult Education.
Do you know Chandler Kania?
Yes, I do.
How long have you known him?
I met Chandler 8 years ago when his family joined our church.
And have you interacted with him through the church?
I have, sir.
In what way?
Well, in student ministry, particularly in high school, in the early years, his 9th grade year, his parents led a high school group for us in an interim basis. One of our leaders fell ill to cancer. So they stepped in and covered that base in Sunday school. Chandler was with them during that time. Following that, they were volunteers in student ministry, particularly when we were out of town. And they also hosted home fellowships in their home periodically.
Thank you, sir. Now, you prepared a statement for this occasion.
I did, sir.
And when did you write this statement?
I wrote it about 3 weeks ago.
Will you please go ahead and read your statement?
Yes, sir. May I, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, families of Darlene, Felicia, Janice, Janiyah, members of the state and defense teams, we meet in the most tragic and difficult of circumstances. Words are a poor tool to express the layers of grief we feel since the morning hours of July 19, 2015. People in our community of faith have not missed a single week pouring out our hearts in prayer to God to intervene somehow and to bring peace to everyone broken by what has happened. I am not able to comprehend what it feels like to lose a child or a family member under circumstances like this. This young man was in a group of students in our family of faith. He was an all-American teen in my student ministry. I pledge my support to Chandler and his family when he graduated from high school in 2013. Inside of him is the young adult with spiritual and family values that were taught and modeled by his parents and his church family. No matter our age or community of faith, everyone who has heard this case understands what can happen when we drift from the moorings of our faith group and we lose sight of our values and the boundaries that define us and protect us. Someone has said, you have what you tolerate. We have today what we tolerated yesterday. And what we tolerate today, we will have tomorrow. The cancer of underage drinking in campus life is tolerated and even normalized in far too many places. Unchecked, we have tragic circumstances like today. If we live long enough, we will come to understand that without a spiritual harness, the slow drift will begin. And then we come to a day like this. What happened to Chandler could happen to any one of us if we move into a culture which he was exposed to. He got away from his spiritual anchor and without any accountability drove impaired and collided with Darlene, Felicia, Janice, and seriously injuring Janiyah. The months of gathering evidence that piece this story together have now come to a close. The verdict is in. A jury has made its findings known. Due process has been served. Chandler has accepted responsibility for his actions, and he expects to serve time. The question today is how much time? Our community expects that justice will be served, and no one in our community expects a light sentence. I would appeal to the court to see the potential Chandler has to make this a better world by reaching and teaching others to value life and make the kind of choices that will foster the betterment of mankind. By his choices, he contributed to 3 deaths. By his future choices, he can save lives. His passion, his mind, and his ability to articulate a conclusive and compelling voice and presence will inspire young people wherever to live a sober life and a God-honoring life. My community loves him and sees this young man as a person God will use inside the prison population. Your Honor, I ask that you grant mercy to the defendant, Chandler Kania. And when our words fall short of expressing our grief, may the words of Scripture bring peace to the victims' families and to all of us. The one who came to free us from the bondage of our sin and heal brokenness is also the one who said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they will be comforted."
Thank you very much, Mr. Coleman, for the floor.
Thanks, sir. You can stay.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, sir, Your Honor. Chandler calls Bruce Murakami. Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Can you state your name, please?
My name is Bruce Murakami.
And can you spell your last name for the court reporter, please?
It's Murakami.
Mr. Murakami, where do you currently live?
I live in Tampa, Florida.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
Currently, I'm a contractor.
Did you start a program called Safe Teen Driver at some point, Mr. Murakami?
Yes, I did. About 2003, I started the program Safe Teen Driver. It was a nonprofit organization.
Can you please share with the court your experience, what happened to your family prior to starting Safe Teen Driver, sir?
About 18 years ago, sorry. About 18 years ago, my wife and my daughter were killed by a young man who was illegally street racing. This was right outside of our home, in the middle of the day. I remember it well. I had come home for lunch. My wife and daughter were at home, and kissed them goodbye. Was going back to my job site, and for some reason, something just tugged at my strings to go back home one more time because I'd forgotten something and I wanted to talk to my wife about something we ought to do this afternoon. Well, they were gone when I got back to the house. So I picked up my materials, was head back to my job site, and I noticed smoke coming over the horizon from a bunch of homes that were in the area. At first I thought it was a structure fire, but as I got closer to the road, I realized it was from a car crash. The emergency vehicles were still arriving on the scene, and for some reason, I felt like I had to go look at it. Normally, I don't like to look at stuff like this. I try to stay out of the way of the first responders. And so I parked my truck, started walking rapidly towards the scene, and something was telling me, this is not good. As I got close to the vehicles, I recognized one of the vehicles involved was my car. My first instinct was look for my wife and daughter. And then I realized there was no way. There were 3 cars involved. One of them had T-boned my family van and then shoved it into oncoming traffic. And this is a busy road. That speed limit was 55 miles an hour. I soon realized what had happened, and I don't remember much after that. People said I collapsed. The next thing I remember, I was being put in the ambulance by a state trooper. At that moment, I realized that I lost my family. To the victim's family here, I know your pain, and yet my condolences. What took place was about a year after that. I waited and waited for the authorities to do their investigation and charge the young man that had killed my family. He survived with minor injuries, as did the person in the other vehicle. I soon realized sitting around for 1 year waiting for something to happen, I was becoming the next victim in this crash. Something told me I had to go back to my roots as a Christian, and that was forgive the young man who did what he did to my family. That didn't mean I condoned what he did, and I still felt he needed to be punished. Finally, after 2 years, they finally charged the young man that killed my wife and daughter. I spent about a year in and out of court, different motions, different things that the attorneys were doing, the prosecutor was doing, and I got to see this young man for the very first time when he was first charged. I realized he was not a bad kid. He was a good kid. He came from a good family. He reminded me of 2 of my boys that are close in age. I started thinking of the what ifs. Rather than putting this kid in prison for 30 years, what we could do differently. I look back at when I was a teenager and a young adult, I made a lot of bad choices, and so did my 2 boys. They did a lot of stupid stuff, but nothing as devastating as this. I came up with the thought of, what if I took this kid with me around the high schools in the area and talked to other young people and then the colleges as well. I thought, what if I came out, told my story, what happened to my family, and then introduced him as the young man that killed my family. I felt that a presentation like this would be far more effective than watching videos on the big screen or slideshows or looking at stats and things of that nature. And so I started the program called Safe Teen Driver. The young man was sentenced. He got an overall 10-year sentence for killing my wife and daughter. He got house arrest. He got community service. He lost his driver's license for a length of time, and he got 8 years of probation. I can say, for me, this worked because it helped me to heal. It helped this young man to heal. It helped to educate a lot of other kids. Like I said, I wasn't looking to get him out of jail, give him a get out of jail free card, not any means. And for me, starting Safe Teen Driver made sense. Since that time, which started back in 2003, we have spoken to well over 500,000 kids all over the country. There's been a couple of documentaries made of the story. There's been a movie made of the story. So I know we've saved a lot of lives. The young man today is married. He's got a family of his own. He has his life. He's a good kid. He's never been in any trouble since, and he never was in trouble in the beginning. So I felt it was my choice to do something like this. This program has helped other young families similar to what's going on with the Kanias and these victims' families here, where I've been able to help other people get together and come up with some sort of an alternative sentencing. Yes, I believe Chandler is going to spend some time in prison, absolutely. We've had it where we've even had the sheriff's department bring people out of jail to come speak to the young high school assemblies. And I can tell you what, the effect is amazing. When you see someone who's close to your age up there, if they're in a prison jumpsuit, it makes a big difference. Or if you see him up there as a civilian, maybe with one of the members of the families that were the victims' families, sharing their story, it does several things. Number one, it keeps your family's your loved one's memory alive. Number two, it's educating and helping other kids to not make the same choice Chandler did. Chandler is one student out of probably close to 1 million college kids that do the same thing every weekend. And everybody's thinking it's not going to happen to me. But you get someone like him to speak to them, maybe they will listen. Maybe they will think twice. And that's how we started Safe Teen Driver, and the program has been a big success.
Mr. Murakami, have you worked in other criminal cases other than involving your family personally? Have you gotten involved in other criminal cases?
Yes, I've worked in approximately 12 cases over the past 10 years, most of them in Tampa. The courts, when we were running the program back then, the courts would actually sentence the offenders to our program. I've worked in several cases around the country in California and in New Jersey of similar instances like this.
Mr. Murakami, how did you become involved in Chandler's case?
I was contacted by Michael Kania, Chandler's dad. He just asked me about how could he start a similar program in his community with what I had started in my community. And that's how we started talking about, you know, what was going on with Chandler, and that's how I got involved with them.
Did you have an opportunity to come up to North Carolina before today and meet with Chandler and his parents?
Yeah, approximately about 6 months ago, I believe, is when I came up here to meet with the Kanyas and also to meet Chandler for the first time. Several reasons. One is, number one, I wanted to get a feel for Chandler's demeanor and how remorseful he was. And having done this a number of times, I mean, the young man is very remorseful. And he's got a very supportive family. And I just thought there's a possibility here that he could probably do something similar to what I did with my program and several others.
Do you see that opportunity for Chandler to help make a difference the same way you did with St. T. Robert and Justin, who's the defendant in your case?
Oh, absolutely. And listening to the testimony from those that are supporting Chandler and all the work that he's done prior to this horrific car crash, that, yeah, Chandler would be an excellent candidate for this program, or to start a program similar to this in this area, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Murakami. No further questions. The DA may ask some.
So let me say at the outset, this is called cross-examination. I will not intend it to be very close.
Okay, thank you.
Can't help but respect what you've gone through, but we do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
I do want to ask you a couple questions. In the case involving your family, would it be fair to say that the sentence that the judge in that case fashioned was done in part because you spoke to the prosecutor and/or the judge and asked that he be given what the sentence be?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
And you would feel that you, as the closest surviving next of kin, you deserve to have that input on the prosecutor and that input on the judge, would you say?
Yes, sir.
And you would agree that in this case, the families of the folks that died in this case deserve that same input, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You mentioned Christian forgiveness.
Mm.
Would you not agree that families of the victims in this case can offer and give their forgiveness whether he goes to prison for 1 day or 100 years? That the prison sentence doesn't stop them from forgiving him in a Christian sense, right?
Oh, that's correct. Yes.
It sounds like this program has, for good reason, seen some success as far as you've been doing it for a while. Not only financial success, I mean
No.
social success. As far as you've done it for a while and it's continued for many years, right?
Yes, I actually stopped the program about 1.5 years ago, just because it was time to move on. You know, I got remarried, and I went back to work. So, yeah.
I guess my question is that the kinds of things you're talking about the defendant doing, he could do all of those things regardless of how long the judge sentences him to prison, right?
Yes and no. Here's my thinking is, I've done this long enough, and I've worked with a lot of young people. Kids are not going to listen to a 45-year-old man get up in front of them and tell them, don't drink and drive. Trust me. They will listen to someone who's close to their age and as a peer. Absolutely. And like I said, in some of the cases that we did, we had the sheriff's department bring the offenders out of jail or prison and spoke to the kids and then took them right back to where they had to serve their time.
I guess that's my point. It sounds like you're saying in some ways it's almost more effective if somebody gets brought up there.
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, the real effect in my program, what really works, sir, was that I, as a person who lost their loved ones, got up there and told my story. We had a professional video done. It had video of the car crash because somebody had just happened to be running around with a camera at the time. So we used all that. The way the program works is if you can hit the kids between the eyes, you're going to get their attention. And that's what we did with this. And then I would introduce the young men that killed my family. And you could hear a pin drop. If you got an auditorium full of 800 kids, you would not hear a single peep out of them other than they're shocked.
One more thing I want to ask you.
Mhm.
In no way can they fault me in the way I ask this. I just want
Okay.
to clarify. You have had a lot of contact with the defendant's family, or some amount of contact between you and the defendant's family.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Kania would keep me abreast of what was happening, you know, when this thing started. Otherwise, it was sporadic. Yes.
You have not had any contact with any relative of Janice Beard, Garland McGee, Alicia Harris, or Janai.
Well, I did try to reach out to them just to talk to them, to introduce myself to them, and that was it. I never got any response, so I've not spoken to them at all.
Do you remember who you tried to contact?
I tried to reach out to Miss Jones, and I believe her aunt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murakami.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, the defendant, Chandler, would like to make a statement, and then I have some very brief final remarks, sir. If whatever the court is comfortable with.
What's the last word for a sentencing? If you can't do that, that'll come at the end. What you want to testify, what you hear now.
I'll go ahead and make my remarks, and then he can make his final statement. Thank you. Your Honor, I'd like to go through mitigating factors that we believe the evidence and the sentencing evidence has supported here. Mitigating factor number 5, that it has made substantial restitution to the victims. Mitigating factor number 12, the defendant has been a person of good character in the community in which he lives. Mitigating factor number 15, the defendant has accepted responsibility for the defendant's criminal conduct, of course, by pleading guilty before the trial began, Your Honor. Mitigating factor number 16, the defendant has entered in and is currently involved in a drug treatment program and an alcohol treatment program with Dr. Lilly. Mitigating factor number 18, Mitigating factor number 18, the defendant has a good support system in the community. Mitigating factor number 20, the defendant has a good treatment prognosis and a workable treatment plan. Mitigating factor number 21, he has a positive history of community service. That's a catch-all mitigating factor, Your Honor, in his community and through his church. Your Honor, I would like to talk about the purposes of sentencing briefly, sir, that are in North Carolina General Statute 15A-340.12. Of course, one of the purposes for sentencing is to punish the defendant. He knows he's going to prison. We know he's going to prison, Your Honor. The other purpose is, number 2, is to protect the public. Your Honor, he does not have a prior record at all. He has a very low risk of any future conduct, Your Honor. Rehabilitation is another purpose, Your Honor. Restoring the defendant to the community as a lawful sentence is another purpose of sentencing. And lastly, deterrence, to deter criminal behavior by others. And I can't imagine a better opportunity than we have, the court has, to allow that to happen through a similar type of program that Mr. Murakami just testified to, Your Honor. Again, understanding that he will be spending a period of time in prison, Your Honor. I would ask the court to make findings of mitigating factors, Your Honor, and I would ask you to sentence him in the mitigated range, give him a period of incarceration followed by 5 years of probation, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, Chandler would like to make a statement, sir.
I'm sorry for my actions on that fateful night in July last year. I allowed alcohol and marijuana to consume me. I do not recall this night in its entirety, but its ramifications I endure every moment of my life. As a direct result of my behavior, 3 lives were lost. 3 innocent people are dead because of me. I made a terrible decision. That cost the lives of Felicia Harris, Darlene McGee, Janice Beard, and seriously injured Janiyah King. And I take full responsibility for my actions. I deeply regret my behavior that night. Not a day goes by that I'm not reminded of my awful decisions and gruesome consequences. I do not know why I'm still alive. I wish it would have been me, the drunk driver, who suffered all of the consequences, and not the Kings, Beard, or McGee's. I'm the only one who is deserving of this heartbreak and misery, yet I know the repercussions of my actions have spread like a wildfire and touched the lives of many in such a disheartening way. I realize my words bring no consolation to those whose lives have been irreparably harmed by me. Nothing can be done to erase my mistakes. I cannot bring back the lives that were lost or erase the hurt I've caused. But what I can do is strive to live my life in a way that might honor the victims. I am and always will be remorseful for what I have done. I am truly sorry.
Madam Clerk, first, in 15 CRS 52019, 52020, the defendant was found guilty by the jury of involuntary manslaughter. I have to arrest judgment in those in order to be able to sentence him on death by vehicle. Also, I'm required to arrest judgment in 15 CRS 2366 on driving while impaired. The judgment on those matters is hereby arrested. You know, there's been a whole lot of evidence in this case about the near universal disregard of the underage drinking laws, the ingenuity of college kids in getting around them. That's not what this case is about. This case is about a 20-year-old man who got drunk and, despite the best efforts of his friends, drove and killed 3 people and injured a 9-year-old little girl. All of who are blameless here. They were precious to God, loved by their families, and their loss is the loss for all of us. Mr. King, if what you've done represents the worst nightmare of every parent, and for your parents, that nightmare is a reality. I've seen their anguish and watched them weep in this court. You can't help but feel for them, but this is not their fault. If there's any good to come from this tragedy, it may be that parents will sit down with their children and talk about drunk driving. If they will hold them close and remind them of what you have done. I do not think you're a bad person, but you caused horrible and terrible hurt. It will follow you forever. Mr. Smith said in his closing remarks to the jury that on July the 19th, 2015, you're a dumb, stupid 20-year-old. Stupid has a high price. Madam Clerk, defendant appeared in open court and pled guilty in 15 CRS 52022 to felony death by vehicle. It's in violation of General Statute 20-141.4A1.
I'm sorry, Counsel. Your Honor, could you repeat that statute?
Yes, ma'am. 20-141.4A1.
Thank you.
It's a felony class D. 4% of General Statute 15A 1340.14 finds that the prior record points the defendant to be 0, therefore record level 1 punishment authorized by these statutes. So order judge decreed the defendant be in prison for a minimum term of 51 months, max term of 74 months, and placed in the custody of the North Carolina Division of Adult Correction. Defendant also pled guilty in 15 CRS 52023 to a like offense of felony death by vehicle. It's Florida judge agreed to be in prison for a minimum term of 51 months, maximum term of 74 months, placed in the custody of the North Carolina Division of Adult Correction. I also pled guilty in 15 CRS 52024 to a like offense of death by vehicle. Florida judge agreed to be in prison for a minimum term of 51 months, maximum term of 74 months, and placed in the custody of the North Carolina Division of Adult Correction. Now, along with that last sentence, I'm going to sentence him concurrent with that sentence. 15 CRS 52025, the serious injury by vehicle. 15 IFS 489, driving one way on a dual lane highway. 15 CRS 707028, obtaining alcohol by false driver's license, 2 counts in that thing. 15 CRS 2367, driving after consuming and possessing an open container alcohol. And in 15 CRS 2372, consuming alcohol by 19, 20-year-old and reckless driving to endanger. Those are all one with those. These 3 sentences shall run consecutive to each other. Is any customers sure?
Your Honor,
Yes.
could I ask the court to recommend work release, Your Honor?
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to do that.
And any mental health treatment programs?
Those are available in the Department of Corrections.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Sheriff, if you will have us rise and adjourn, I sign it out.
All rise. Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. On Corporal County Barnes now stands adjourned. Sign it out.
We have an order for transcripts. We have,
Sure.